a successful businessman, a loving family, and a life that looked absolutely perfect. But in just a few months, he lost his job, his house, his reputation, and was even accused of stealing millions of dollars. The shocking part? He was completely innocent. So how did one of the most successful men end up standing in a courtroom, fighting to prove he wasn't a criminal? This is the unbelievable story of Mark Miller, a story that proves sometimes life is a break you before it can rebuild you. Mark Miller wasn't just another businessman. He was one of the most respected executives in his company. People admired his confidence, his discipline, and his ability to solve impossible problems. From the outside, it looked like he had achieved everything a person could ever want. But appearances can be deceiving. Years earlier, Mark and his wife, Naomi, experienced the greatest tragedy any parent could face. They lost their young daughter, Esther. That single moment shattered their world. Naomi tried to heal by holding on to her family. Mark chose a different path. Instead of facing his pain, he buried himself in work. Every promotion, every late-night meeting, and every successful deal became a way to avoid thinking about the daughter he could never bring back. His career kept growing, but his family kept drifting away. Naomi watched the man she loved become a stranger. They still lived under the same roof, but emotionally, they were miles apart. Then, without any warning, life delivered another devastating blow. An economic crisis forced Mark's company to cut costs. One by one, employees were called into private meetings. When Mark's turn came, he wasn't expecting bad news. After years of loyalty and countless sacrifices, he believed his position was secure. He was wrong. The company thanked him for his service and then fired him. Just like that, the executive everyone respected walked out, carrying a small box containing the last pieces of his office life. At first, Mark stayed confident. He believed someone with his experience would quickly find another high-paying job. But interview after interview ended the same way. We'll let you know. No one ever called back. Weeks turned into months. His savings disappeared. Bills kept arriving. The pressure inside the house became unbearable. Eventually, Mark and Naomi could no longer afford their home. Everything they had spent years building slipped away before their eyes. For the first time, Mark realized something terrifying. His job wasn't just what he did. It had become who he was. Without it, he no longer recognized himself. The stress consumed him. He started drinking to escape reality, hoping alcohol could silence the pain that kept growing inside him. Instead, it only pushed him further into darkness. His relationship with Naomi reached its breaking point. Every conversation turned into an argument. Every day felt heavier than the last. Mark had already lost his daughter years before. Now he had lost his career, his home, his confidence, and he was dangerously close to losing his family as well. Standing in the middle of all that pain, Mark believed his story was over. He had no idea that the darkest chapter of his life was about to become the beginning of something he never imagined. When everything around him had fallen apart, Mark Miller finally reached a point where he could no longer rely on his own strength. For years, he had believed success came from hard work, money, and status. But now, all of those things were gone. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" Mark made a decision that changed the course of his life forever. He surrendered his fears to God and chose to rebuild not his career, but his character. It wasn't an overnight miracle. His problems didn't disappear the next morning, but something inside him began to change. The man who was once consumed by ambition became calmer, more patient, more compassionate. He stopped measuring people by their success and started valuing kindness, honesty, and forgiveness. Slowly, life began giving him another chance. Mark was offered a position at a consulting firm. It wasn't as prestigious as his old job, but this time he wasn't chasing titles. He was simply grateful to work again. At the new company, he quickly earned the respect of many colleagues, but not everyone was happy to see him succeed. Some co-workers tried to undermine him. Others took credit for his work or spread rumors behind his back. The old Mark would have fought every battle, but this Mark was different. He stayed honest, treated everyone with respect, and refused to seek revenge. Even when people tried to bring him down, he answered with patience instead of anger. For the first time in years, Mark finally felt at peace. But life wasn't finished testing him. One day, the company discovered that millions of dollars had vanished through a massive embezzlement scheme. The office fell into chaos. An internal investigation began. Then came the biggest shock of all. The evidence pointed directly at Mark. Within hours, the man who had rebuilt his reputation was branded a criminal. Friends began doubting him. Co-workers avoided him. Everything he had worked so hard to restore seemed to collapse once again. But Mark knew one thing with absolute certainty. He was innocent. The real mastermind was his own boss, Nicholas Taylor, who had secretly stolen the money and manipulated the evidence to make Mark take the blame. The situation looked hopeless. Nicholas was powerful. The evidence looked convincing, and Mark had almost no way to prove the truth. Then, something unexpected happened. Earlier in his journey, Mark had quietly helped a struggling colleague without expecting anything in return. That single act of kindness now came back to save him. The colleague's father, Abraham Holman, an experienced lawyer, agreed to defend Mark. Inside the courtroom, every piece of evidence was carefully examined. One by one, the lies began to fall apart. Hidden details exposed Nicholas's deception. Witnesses revealed what had really happened. The truth could no longer stay buried. In the end, the court declared Mark completely innocent. Nicholas Taylor was exposed as a real criminal and finally faced justice. But Mark's greatest victory wasn't winning the case. It was the person he had become. The man who once believed life was all about success had discovered something far more valuable. True peace doesn't come from wealth. It doesn't come from power. And it certainly doesn't come from a job title. It comes from integrity, faith, and the courage to keep moving forward when life seems determined to break you. Mark regained his career. He rebuilt his relationship with Naomi. But more importantly, he found himself again. And that's what makes his story so unforgettable. Sometimes, losing everything isn't life's way of punishing you. Sometimes, it's life's way of preparing you for the person you were always meant to become.